Web development is a process of building websites for the internet, commonly known as World Wide Web. Before going ahead, let us look at how the web works. A computer that hosts a website files is called as a server, and this server will be connected to the internet. A client is a computer that uses a browser for loading websites via internet. HTTP, also known as Hypertext Transport Protocol, is a set of rules that's been defined in the internet for establishing a connection between the client and the remote server. Using this particular protocol, we can browse through multiple web pages. Consider a scenario where you want to load a particular website page. You will start by entering a website URL on the browser and click on search. The client will then send a request to the server stating that it wants to establish a connection. The server will internally check whether this particular IP is related to a website that is available. If it is, then it will send a response stating that a connection has been established. Once a connection has been established between the client and the server, the client will send a subsequent request stating that it needs an assets to display the website page. The server then will send a response with an assets. The client is responsible for downloading that particular assets and showcasing an output for the user. Here we also have another protocol called as HTTPS, where S stands for security and the communication between the client and the server will be encrypted. A website can be identified using either domain name or an IP address. Here, a domain name is an human readable name given to a website, whereas an IP address is a unique string of numbers that's been assigned to the domain name, which can be used for identifying the website. For example, the domain names can be as follows: google.com, youtube.com, example.com, or anything like yourname.com. But IP address is a string of numbers which can only be identified by the computer. Domain name server is responsible for looking up an IP address that's been assigned for the domain name. For example, if we are looking for example.com, it'll be sent to our domain name server. Domain name server will then use a lookup table and provide a response with an IP address. The websites cannot be directly loaded on our computer, so we need to have a computer program called as browsers like Chrome, Edge, Firefox to view the content of the website. The standard files that can be loaded on the websites are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, and videos. And there are also some of the files like fonts that can be loaded. Web development consists of three building blocks that are absolutely necessary for building a website, namely HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is used to give a structure for our website. Here in an example, you can look that there is a padlock with a latch, keyhole, and closet. And we have an CSS that can be used for adding styles for our website. In our example, color has been added to our padlock. JavaScript can be used to add functionalities to our HTML element. We are controlling the latch mechanism of the path, like open and close. Here are some basic setups that you need to know before starting with web development. We will use Chrome browser for loading and testing our web applications. VS Code will be used as our code editor. Always recommended to use Visual Studio Code for editing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or any other programming languages. We will use Git as an version control. So you can use Git for version control where multiple version of your code can be like maintained at a time and you can like migrate from one code version to another code version. To download this Git, you can go to gitscm.com and download and install it on your system. In our next series, we'll look at how to write basic HTML.